You are listening to Stories in Berlin, 20 minutes every week, monologues and radio plays, interviews with writers, artists and bands, poetry and songs, true stories from the city of Berlin. Hello to all and welcome to Stories in Berlin. This is Chris speaking, and today we are going to follow a quite unique musician here in Berlin, the man who paints silent films.
Hello, I'm Gregor. I'm a German Austrian national and arrived in Berlin about 8 years ago.
I met Gregor one night in an art house cinema in Neukölln, silent movie on the big screen and a young man on the piano.
This is our third Stummfilm, Il Stummfilm Kino Salon here at Kino. And we're about to see two shorts by Buster Keaton, with and by Buster Keaton from the 1920s.
I asked him who he was, what he was doing. I was especially curious about how he did what he did, how he constructed the music behind the silent movies he would accompany, if it was an improvisation or a composition.
When you compose for a film, you have to try out with the visuals that you see what kind of harmonies and mood and melodies you want to deliver. So you have to try out with an improvisation what would work to the moving image.
A structured improvisation, he said.
So my approach to accompanying a silent movie with the piano is not already made composition that already exists, but it's something I call a structural improvisation. That is that in case I have the possibility, sometimes it's not even the case, but usually I have the possibility to see or choose the film beforehand, and therefore I can structure the films in different parts of moods and certain events that happen here and there. So it's always a plus to know what happens next when you accompany the film with music, and therefore you can quickly change the mood. You can go into something that's called Mickey Mousing. That is when somebody falls, for example, then you make a big dark.
Mickey Mousing is actually miming with the sound what happens on the screen. But it's not always like that it works. Sometimes you have to go against the mood, create your own interpretation of the scene and offer the public a double sensation, what they see and what they hear being opposite in mood.
A 100 years ago, when sound film was invented, everything changed, but before that there was no sound. And therefore the piano player in the cinema needed to improvise or compose for the movie. And back in the day, the amount of special effects and the quality of special effects may be a little bit different to the quality nowadays. So when you saw like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with a monster mask, maybe you were very afraid. But when we see it now, we cannot identify so much with it because it's not that authentic and it's rather coming across funny. So of course now I have the choice, either I take it serious or I ridiculize it. And these are all the possibilities that the piano player then has in that moment to see, okay, this is far too exaggerated for nowadays perception of emotions, and therefore I change the music accordingly. I ridiculize something, or I go with the mood of that certain scene. Also, romantic moments are completely exaggerated in some old movies, and therefore you can take the mickey out of it if you want to, and play something absolutely kitsch, and therefore people are then invited to laugh.
Performing live music over silent movies, especially if you haven't a pre-composed score but you have to improvise on stage, it sounds challenging enough. But it can get even more challenging if you're not able to look on the screen.
A funny thing happened once when I was invited to perform to some Max Sklanowski shorts in a museum here in Berlin. And I didn't know the movie, so it was a complete improv. I couldn't structure anything beforehand. But when I arrived, the piano was staying in a way that the film was supposed to play behind my back. So we had to find a solution. We could not move the piano. So I need to go to the bathroom, and I took the mirror out of the bathroom and I put it on my notestand, and therefore my notestand was the mirror showing the screen from behind my back. And that must have looked a little bit weird.
How it all started, this passion for silent movies.
When I was a kid, I went to the movies quite often and got more and more interested in film music, and film scoring was also part of my studies. And while composing for film music, you have to try out what could work with the mood and the emotionality happening on screen. And therefore I started with the approach to improvise to what I see on the screen, and decided one day to actually make a film concert out of this. First in a smaller private frame, and then later there was different projects here in Delphi and Babylon and in the Stummfilmverein.
Favorite films? Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton? Favorite music genre?
Sometimes people ask me, Gregor, what's your favorite music or your favorite singer or musician or music genre or style? And I've got a big problem with that because I cannot really answer. It has to do with the fact it is always about context. You know, when you take a bath, you probably don't want to listen to techno, and when you try to sleep, neither. And when you go dancing, you probably don't want to, hear opera. So basically, it always depends on the context, where and when you are, and what your mood is, and not about a specific genre. If I would say I like one specific DJ, I'm not going to like his music the whole time. It always depends where I am. And when you play piano to a silent movie, it's the same, because there's many different moods that happen and alternate throughout the plot of the entire movie, and therefore you always have to adapt to the mood. So basically, I'm not playing a certain style. I'm trying to play my interpretation of the mood that I want to give. And if somebody is very sad, I could make this mood very sad with the piano. Of course, the piano is not it's not electronic music, but on the piano you still have a very wide range of doing something very, very different and diverse to explain many different moods. And the whole question of what's your favorite music is just about context, and I think every music shall be respected because it comes out of an urge to create this music. Having said that, I don't like LA Gangsta hip-hop so much.
Stage fright?
I think there's always adrenaline before shows, so I usually take a little bit of space for myself before a concert starts. And another technique to, well, not to get rid of, but at least to make the stage fright a bit smaller, is that I just think of a concert I did where I had a lot of stage fright, like a big concert, and therefore I see, hey, this concert is actually like very calm and smaller, so it shouldn't have a big impact, and you can go on stage with more ease. In that way, I think of a concert in Manila in the football stadium, and it was very big, and there was 20,000 people, and all the electric cables were laying in the rain, and it was all very hectic. And then I think before a show here in a smaller place, okay, that was quite something. I guess we can do this performance tonight.
Gregor isn't always accompanying silent movies with his melodies. He also plays the hang, hosts cabaret shows and writes comedy songs, and sometimes plays live jazz piano.
So apart from jazz piano, I also play something called a hang, H-A-N-G, that stands for a hand, because you play it with the hand, which is a hand drum from Switzerland. And it has a very nice timbre, a very warm timbre. You may have seen it, these round instruments. And I combine this with compositions of deep house, because when I got to Berlin, I got more and more into electronics. It's hard not to get into electronics when you go to Berlin. And I go to festivals and perform, also sometimes with other musicians, and it's one other project. And another thing I'm very interested in is organizing cabarets and writing comedy songs.
Okay, I'm gonna play a song for you that I composed with my friend Bob Marley. He could not make it tonight. He's dead. We're jamming. I wanna jam it with you. We're jamming, jamming, and I hope you like jamming too. Munich and Berlin, it's the place we're living in. German is the language of the Lord. But don't mention the war. Don't always say what you adore. Buckle up and welcome aboard. I'm German. To think that German was a thing from the past, oh no. Cause every day we pay the price. We're the living sacrifice, and I hope this German is gonna last. And I know we flopped and cool, but now we are right. Happiness nationwide. But police arrive on time. Being late muss das denn sein? And precision is not a crime. I'm German. I want a German with you. I'm German, German, and I hope you like German too. What? Also German? What? Also German? Ja, dann können wir auch Deutsch reden. Because I'm German, yeah. I want a German with you. German, German, and I hope Germans here tonight in the audience? No. Do we have some German here tonight in the audience? Do we have some non-Germans in the audience? Okay. This is going to be very difficult now. So the Germans have the part, they have to sing I'm German. Yeah? If that's too difficult, you've got pens and papers at the bar. And then the others, the non-Germans, they have to sing I Want a German with you. And I hope you like German too. We're going to try that. So the Germans go, yeah? I'm German. And the non-Germans go.
I think Berlin is just a very exciting place because there's other cities that are actually a little bit further. I feel a little bit like in a time machine in this city, but actually mostly in a good way because the rent is, well, it's also getting higher, but the rent is relatively cheap in comparison to other Western cities. And therefore, I think more artists can actually survive here. And in places where you pay $3,000 for a small room, that may actually have as a consequence that some artists who want to try out something less mainstream, less money-driven, more content-driven, more experimental, that these people, they need to move out of town. And therefore, I think Berlin has a very rich spectrum of art. What I love about Berlin is that a little bit like in the Roaring Twenties, I have the impression this is all coming back, is the amount of liberty here. And that is just something that you cannot do in most parts of the world or in most parts of Germany. And many people, I think, aged 20 to 40 from around the world coming for exactly that reason here to Berlin, amongst others to find their artistic voice and to try out new things in the art world.
I really like it. It was very funny, and the time was really great because it's like not too long and not too short. I really, really like it.
Hi, Gregor's play is amazing. He really knows how to illustrate the theme, like musical-wise. And the pictures are very funny. You can see or imagine how people's perception and back in the days, different reality. It's cool.
Thank you, Gregor. That was very, very beautiful experience to be in your concert.
Thank you.
And it was very unique, this combination. How can someone reach you if he wants to find you? Where can we find you?
Yeah, I've got a website. That's www.gregorgraciano with a C, Gregor Graciano in one word .com. Or if you put Gregor Graciano to YouTube, there's the silent movie accompaniments, there's jazz renditions, and there's deep house compositions with the hang drum that I was talking about as well. I also got a Facebook page that is Graciano Music on Facebook, and they usually post the public concerts and events, if it's silent movies, if it's cabarets that we coordinate, and other events that are not corporate or private, of course. Then everybody's very invited to join. And if you come to Himmelplatz, say hello for coffee. Thank you, Christina. Thank you for coming.
And thank you all for listening. See you next week with more stories from Berlin. You are listening to Stories in Berlin.